quartet back in Chicago, Illinois, and we used to get this kind of The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects, 1995, I believe. Wow. Just from the onset, I'm really going to have to tell you that there are going to be spoilers in this because it's like a crime mystery type of vibe. So spoilers are definite, but at the same time, 1995, and look, that was over 20 years ago. If you actually haven't watched it, then it's your fault. Really, it's your fault. You have to watch it. Very, very good movie. I keep forgetting a lot of the names when I make these videos, so I will really just put them here or there somewhere. Anyway, forgetting who the director is, but it has Kevin Spacey. I'm sure you know who Kevin Spacey is. He's like sort of the main character. Kevin Spacey is sort of like the main character in this. It's a narration sort of vibe, which normally I don't like narrations unless it's actually someone who's directly involved within the story, not just an external voice that's just telling the story. So this one, it's like he's in a thing. It's like interview with the cops, and he's telling the story, so it makes sense with the narration. And then it cuts back like 6 weeks, about 6 weeks prior to that, and the story progresses from there. It cuts back to the present, goes back when he continues telling the story, etc. And it all starts with this routine lineup, because these are the usual suspects. Whenever something goes down, these five guys, I think the 5 guys, they go for the police lineup. They have to say a phrase. Phrase is funny. They have to say a phrase, and whoever's witnessing it, the person who would have heard the voice, tries to figure out which one of them it is, right? You know how like a lineup works. You've seen it a lot of times. So when they're being held after the lineup, they start talking, and someone has a preposition, because they all know each other, because obviously these guys have been booked a lot of times. They've gone to prison a couple of times. They know each other because they're all criminals. One of them says that he's gone legit. He's actually in a relationship with some lawyer. And so they go on with this plan. It's basically to rob dirty cops, and because what the dirty cops do is they actually pick up criminals for a fare, and then they allow the criminals to do whatever it is that they're doing, and they just basically blind to it. Dirty cops. It's a thing. It's been in a lot of movies in the last 10 or so years. So they bust this one guy who had emeralds and money and whatnot. They're splitting it amongst each other. Then they say that there's a possibility that there's another job. When they go for the other job, things go wrong. They end up killing people because they didn't want to kill people, because a lot of the guys are against killing people when they actually do their robberies, etc. They actually end up having to kill the guy who had a briefcase full of cocaine, and his 2 bodyguards. They ended up having to kill him. And so this other guy, because they got that job from like a middleman, then this other guy who works for the actual boss, whose name is Kaiser Soze, comes and tells them that each of them at one point stole from Kaiser Soze, and the only reason that they're still alive is because they didn't know that they were stealing from him. It was one of those, because Kaiser Soze never does things by himself. He always gets runners to do his dirty business, and so on and so forth. So they start sort of working to pay back Kaiser Soze, but they think that he doesn't actually exist. Then they go for the guy who he sent to talk to them. Then he assures them that, he basically knows everything about them, and if they are to fall out of line, then Mr. Soze would just come and, all of them. So, yeah, he's telling the cops the story. This is, his name was Verbal. His name was actually Roger Kent, I think. That's Kevin Spacey's character, but they called him Verbal because he sort of just talks and talks and talks. Like that, what I did in the beginning was actually one of the lines that he said during this interview with the cops. He kept talking about things that had nothing to do with the situation. And after, there's actually someone else in the hospital who says he saw the face of Kaiser Soze, and he's speaking in Hungarian, and now he's sort of describing the face of Kaiser Soze so that the police sketching thing, right? They're doing that, and this is happening throughout the movie. And finally, when Verbal gets to go, because he's a cripple as well, and he's the only one who survived amongst all 5 of them. He's the only one who survived, and he was granted immunity and so forth. He's a cripple. He's apparently stupid as well. But at the end, the twists are amazing. I think this movie actually rejuvenated my interest in crime and mystery genre movies. So everything that he was saying, all the names he produced in that interview were all a part of this big board, like notice board in the office that he was in. The quartet thing was a post on the wall. The name of the lawyer that he gave was like the brand of the Cubs, etc. And he walks out of that precinct limping and whatnot, and then he just starts walking straight, because he is Kaiser Soze. And, the whole thing is just mind-blowing. Beautiful execution. I promise you, if you've never watched this movie, watch it right after you like, comment, subscribe.